Brook trout, Salvelinus fontinalis, are a northern Minnesota legacy, a living indicator of clean, cold water systems, and a treasured emblem of the state's wilderness. Native to a limited portion of Minnesota's northeastern terrain, brook trout once thrived in the cold, spring-fed headwaters flowing through ancient metamorphic rock and boreal forest. Today, they remain most robust in remote watersheds of the Lake Superior North Shore Highlands, the Boundary Waters Canoe Area, and the Grand Portage Reservation. Among the few salmonids native to the upper Midwest, brook trout require pristine conditions: cold, well-oxygenated water, stable flow regimes, and complex substrates for spawning. Their historical strongholds, clear rivers tumbling over basalt bedrock, shaded by spruce and cedar, supported genetically distinct populations that adapted to the region's unique geology and climate. But by the early 20th century, their range and abundance had been dramatically reduced. The causes were varied and interwoven. The era of industrial-scale logging, coupled with railroad expansion and growing agricultural settlement, took a heavy toll on aquatic ecosystems. Logging practices stripped forests and riparian corridors, eroded stream banks, and filled cold-water habitats with sediment. Streams warmed as canopy cover disappeared. Dams fragmented spawning runs. Mining and tannery operations discharged waste into tributaries. These transformations were swift and largely unregulated. Brook trout, especially sensitive to heat and turbidity, declined steeply in areas of disturbance. In response, fisheries managers launched some of the most ambitious trout propagation and stocking programs in the United States. At the heart of this effort were the now iconic trout rail cars, mobile hatcheries built into railroad cars that transported millions of fry, fingerlings, and eggs across the Midwest. Minnesota's rail cars crisscrossed the state beginning in the late 1800s, delivering live fish to remote lakes and streams that had been stocked out or historically devoid of trout altogether. This practice was driven by a mix of utilitarian conservation, recreation economics, and a growing sporting tradition. Initially, brook trout were the primary species stocked. However, as hatchery science matured and angler demand diversified, rainbow trout and brown trout, both non-native, were introduced as hardier alternatives. Rainbow trout grew quickly and handled warmer water, while brown trout tolerated degraded habitat better than brook trout and could outcompete them in many systems. These non-natives flourished in many stocked locations, but not without ecological trade-offs. In streams where native brook trout once thrived, they were often outcompeted, displaced, or genetically diluted through stocked strains. Still, not all native populations vanished. In the Lake Superior watershed, a rare and remarkable life form persisted: the coaster brook trout. Coasters are potamodromous brook trout, meaning they migrate within fresh water. They spend much of their adult lives in the cold, nearshore waters of Lake Superior before returning to natal tributaries to spawn. Historically, they ranged widely along the lake's north shore, supported by deep pools, gravelly mouths, and unspoiled forested headwaters. By the mid-20th century, coaster populations in Minnesota had collapsed due to overharvest, stream degradation, and sea lamprey predation. Their dramatic decline marked one of the most sobering chapters in North Shore fisheries history. However, conservation efforts in recent decades, led by federal and tribal agencies, academic researchers, and local organizations, have aimed to restore coaster habitat, improve water quality, and regulate harvest. The Grand Portage Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa in particular, has played a leading role in restoring trout habitat and monitoring genetic diversity within native coaster stocks. Brook trout conservation today is a careful balance between biological restoration, recreational opportunity, and climate adaptation. Agencies now prioritize native strain preservation and genetic integrity, ceasing stocking in self-sustaining brook trout streams and managing non-natives to reduce competitive pressure. Cold water refugia, such as groundwater seeps and deeply forested headwaters, are being identified and protected as climate warming threatens to narrow the band of viable trout habitat across the upper Midwest. Watershed-scale forest management practices aim to buffer stream temperatures, slow runoff, and maintain natural hydrology. Despite the obstacles, brook trout have demonstrated resilience. In wilderness areas and minimally disturbed tributaries, they persist, often with little intervention. In a few exceptional streams, native wild brook trout continue to spawn in the same gravel beds as their ancestors. And now, if you don't mind us asking for your minimal disturbance, please cast us a like and subscribe. Thanks.